Hi, welcome to Intersect with Jacqueline Proctor. Today, my guest is just one of the best people around Huntington, I think. His energy is powered by an internal source, I think, is the sun. And his optimism for the presence and future of alternative energy resources in Appalachia is endless. So to that, I say thank you, Deacon Stone, for coming.
Well, geez, thanks for inviting me. Yeah, I have been blamed of, I've been accused of being energetic. We used to make the joke that, have you seen this paint dry? Like, have you seen it? It's fascinating. You should watch it. It's the most amazing thing. It has this sheen.
Only you could do that.
Yeah, I can poke fun at myself too. I know I've got it bad.
So tell us a little bit. Let's start with where you were with Coalfield Development and how that evolved into where you are now, which is marketing director and outreach for Solar Holler. I love that name. So
Sure,
tell us a little bit about both of those.
I actually started my foray into nonprofits with a nonprofit in Huntington that's really close to my heart, which is Hospice of Huntington. And I did facilities operations and supply management for them, and including the patient supply. So I got to know a lot about the background, the heart and the soul of exactly how and why nonprofits exist, like how they operate, why they're here, what they do. I saw the boards, I saw the committees, I saw, the friction in this decision-making process, and I saw amazing outcomes that came from people with a lot of compassion and heart and soul for, in that instance, making someone's journey a little bit better.
Was that your first job here in Huntington?
Yes, that was actually my first job in recent memory here in Huntington.
Okay.
I did maintenance throughout the tri-state for many years and kind of am a son of the hills. I've cut my teeth doing a little bit of everything.
Speaking of son of, are you originally from Huntington?
I'm from Burlington, right across the river in South Point area.
We'll forgive you.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Burlington was a really great place. It was actually homesteaded by folks kind of released during the Emancipation Proclamation and was homesteaded. It was a diverse location with a deep heritage and history, and a lot of challenges over there with poverty that I had experienced when I came up. But I was exposed to diversity that other kids who came up in other communities were not exposed to. And I consider that a cornerstone of developing heart and soul, most importantly, developing perspective and understanding that no matter how different we all may be, that we are all citizens of Earth and we're all humans first. So
let's go back to what brought you across the river. You were talking about hospice.
Well, with a heart for kind of like, I guess I had kind of plied my trade in community maintenance and building maintenance coming up in the hills. I was the only child of a single mom in a family of really strong-willed women who sometimes had children, illegitimately out of wedlock, but the men were just notoriously absent in all of these situations.
Okay.
And when something needed to be done, I would just try to figure it out. And so without a mentor there, the tools of the trade kind of became my mentor. I saw it make sense if you look at it and understand its function. And that kind of began everything. So from a situation of scarcity, I was able to, if I could access a tool, a saw, a screwdriver, I could fix the car. I could go down the street and find a local mechanic and say, it's acting funny, the car's doing this, and I'm like, 11, 12 years old. Well, try that fuel filter. We could afford to spring for a couple bucks for a fuel filter. We couldn't afford to have someone put it on there. So
so that early education, that early experience, that life education is what you're saying framed you for a life going down the path of nonprofit.
I think so, yes. And it taught me that folks in the hills can ply amazing trades with just a small set of skills and a few tools. And if we have access to education and mentorship, we can go to the stars and beyond. And so having come up, on welfare, stood in the commodity lines, I'm grateful every day my mom was a beans and rice welfare mom and not like a Doritos and Mountain Dew welfare mom. And I say that not to be offensive, but I've seen both sides of that aisle. And, she took good care of me and she made sure I had opportunities in life. And I really credit a lot of my breakaway from that, in not just skill building out of necessity, but from, under the Clinton administration, the Welfare to Work program. That wound up getting my mom out of the house and expanding her horizons of possibility. Because she saw her task on this earth to protect me, to guide me,
Absolutely.
to educate me, and provide opportunities for me, and didn't realize that sometimes we have a lot of risk aversion, especially when we're close to falling off the edge, when we're only subsisting. And by kind of prodding her to get out, take a risk, and get out of the trailer, so to speak, and see what opportunities laid there. She wound up getting a 4-year degree from Ohio University's Southern Campus.
Good
she wound up
for her.
working and making money. And it is just, it's not comical in hindsight. It makes perfect sense. A cottage industry of babysitting sprung up in our region.
Absolutely.
After the Welfare to Work program.
Yep.
And I was
Somebody's got to
staying-
mind the kids while mom's working.
Exactly, and the fact of the matter is, like, even today, by the name, better than 50% of folks who are receiving public assistance are minors and children, right? So I feel like a lot of the stereotypes and the concepts that brought about this prod to move toward the Welfare to Work program were kind of thrown back in the face of
Right.
folks who were touting them as the reason to go there. But it was a gateway for me.
Yeah. Talk to me a bit about Coalfield development and the focus and vision you had being a part of that. I mean, it was pretty amazing what was going on at West Edge, and I want people to understand better what went on in those four walls of that big factory.
Yeah, in 2014, our amazing and brilliant founder and director, Brandon Dennison, filed for and he received the first Art Place America grant for creative placemaking that was granted in the
Right.
state of West Virginia. And that was to renovate this dilapidated, abandoned factory on the outskirts of Huntington, not the West End, as Westmorelanders kind of take chagrin to you calling it. It's the West Edge. It really is right on the edge of Huntington.
Perfect
And
name.
interestingly, inside of this little Venn diagram overlap, the little piece of Huntington that sticks into Wayne County, the county where Coalfield Development was founded. So we came in 2014 with some dollars and some plans. I saw the article about the Art Place grant, called Brandon to volunteer. One thing led to another, and I became the director of the project. So we came into this place that had fallen into not just disuse, but misuse. It ended up being a resource for the darker elements of the community, folks who were at best trying to get some money to buy a case of beer for the weekend, and at worst hanging out there doing drugs and who knows what.
Right.
The place was absolutely stripped of everything. There was no copper, there was no plumbing, there was no electric, it was just a hole, and we sought first to secure it. And once we kind of set our foot down and made our place known, there was a period of about just over a year that the crime in the Westmoreland neighborhood dropped by over 42%.
Awesome.
And we had
There's
no
statistics
idea.
that say that.
Yes,
Right,
yes, this was
okay.
from the Huntington Police
This is
Department.
for real. Yep,
Yeah,
I'm
and,
with
and
you.
we were just, our jaws kind of dropped because, nonprofit work, as with, any kind of management work, you want a measurable outcome to aim
Absolutely.
toward.
Yep.
And it is amazing to see that you can walk ambitiously down a path and achieve things you never, ever dreamed of. So it all came from this idea that, and this is Brandon's brainchild, that liabilities in communities are just a hair's breadth from being assets, and in many times it's just
Great thought.
it's just the way you look at it, right? That shortcomings and challenges are really just opportunities in disguise, right?
Right.
And my take on it is that stumbling blocks and stepping stones, there's no difference between them. It's just how you look at them and how you treat them.
So, Deacon, I wanted to ask you about your incredible passion and how that impacts our community, because clearly you're in the mix of things, but very specifically through Coalfield Development and then onto Solar Holler.
Right.
I did that right. There's a difference in terms of what it does for people, what it does for humanity. You spoke about the crime rate dropping once West Edge really got going. So keep that all in mind. But I really want to ask you, were you ever afraid at any point when you started out with Coalfield and West Edge?
Oh, afraid for my safety?
No. Really afraid, like, what if this doesn't work, or what if we can't get it as far as we envision it? I mean, that's a big challenge, what you and Brendan took on.
It certainly is a big challenge, and we took on big challenges constantly, I think, because that's where it's at. Like it is not about where you happen to be, it's about what direction you're going in.
Okay.
Right? So I hear people talk about Huntington recently won the America's Best Communities
Right.
grant from Frontier Communications and others. And I had a young lady tell me the other day when I brought it up, I have no idea how we won that. And I was like, that was a grant that was about our community development planning. That was about where we're going. And we are going in an awesome direction here. So many get fixed on where we are. It goes back into that idea that like, oh, here's a abandoned factory. This place is really, going down the tubes. Well, is it, or is that place sitting there waiting for someone, some group, some community to rally around it and make it something more? Are there people in our communities who are waiting for an opportunity?
Right.
Are there people in our communities who they want to work, but they can't get very gainful employment because they can't get access to an education while they work? They want to go to school, but they can't afford to because they can't get the job they need to help pay for it, and sometimes can't work while they go.
But I think
This is where coalfield development came in.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think that's where, I so enjoy this conversation, because that's a big list of accomplishments. That's a big list of goals and objectives. And at some point, maybe when you're falling asleep at night, you might think, oh, maybe we could back it up a little. But you never seem to have that wavering, you never waver in your enthusiasm.
Well, I did. We learned about something at Hospice of Huntington called compassion fatigue. And it's a lesson I took with me to understand that it comes to, I guess it connects to this philosophy of like teaching a person to fish, is how I applied it in coalfield development. It's going to take a great deal of effort to teach someone to fish, and you're going to have to fish enough for the both of you while you do it, but you understand that on the other side is something awesome. You are building assets in your community that create a feedback loop, because if each trains the next, then we have something that can roll and can scale across counties, across hills and hollows of our region.
So is that what you took along with you? I'm sure you did, but I'll ask the question, to make the change to Solar Holler, and where is your passion there?
I have a great deal of passion, obviously, still for coalfield and their programs, and wanted to find a way to shake things up, do something new, because I'm a fan of that kind of thing. I think it's important to accomplish what you can and then move on and let others pick up where you left off. And there's an excellent director there in Luke Huffman, who is a friend of mine, and he has just taken it to the next level, and I knew it was time. So I was able to step over to Solar Holler and still pipe work to coalfield development in their Rewire Appalachia enterprise. They are hiring young people from the coalfield counties of West Virginia, Wayne, Lincoln, Mingo County, some of them from the mining industry, some of them from mine-related industries, who are trading in their headlamps for sunglasses and going up onto the rooftops and accomplishing change here in Appalachia. Change that's scalable in the way that we're literally training up through our program, young people who will have a great deal of expertise and experience in electrical and solar installation. We do not intend upon hiring them, because we want to leave room in our program for more trainees. They may go to a competitor, they may go to an electrician, they may go. You see, it's like Audie Perry, who directs Heritage Farm and Museum, one of our jewels here.
Yes,
he says,
absolutely.
We need to stop talking about how to divide up the pie and start building bakeries.
I like it.
And that's the concept.
Okay.
So what do you build a bakery on? Maybe one of those abandoned factories.
That's true. So the young people, and actually I remember a gentleman who came to a Chat and Chew meeting that I was leading one evening, and he came specifically to hear you. I remember that. And he came specifically to ask you, where do I learn? Where do I go? And I remember that smile, that beam on your face about, well, let's talk about that.
Yes.
So it's really wide open in terms of age and training of any sort, if you've got some basic skills.
Yes, it is. And Coalfield's program started with young people in particular in Wayne, Lincoln, Mingo County who had limited access to education and employment. And through some funding from the ARC, the Benedum Foundation, the One Foundation, and others, they've been able to expand that program to speak directly to the downturn in the coal economy that we're experiencing right now, and to hire folks up from mine industries and mine-related industries in their many enterprises in agriculture, woodworking, community development, you name it.
Right.
So that's an aspect, yeah.
When you share all this information, it makes me think of an equation like mc square, Einstein's equation of relativity. I think I have that right. If not, I'm sure I'll hear about it. But
General, not specific relativity. I'm just kidding.
But the point is, you seem to have such a clear vision of tracking how things evolve. And I think that's awesome for the region. I think it's incredible for Huntington. So let me ask you a different kind of way. How do you see this ultimately impacting Huntington for maybe 10 years down the road? What kind of community will Milo and Lola live in 10 years down the road? Because I know that's important to you.
Mayor Williams highlighted this when we won the America's Best Communities bid, that during the course, the 3-year pursuit of that $3 million grant bid, that connections were forged that leveraged over $12.5 million worth of investment in our communities. And some of these were grants that mentioned or were connected with the grant bid for the city of Huntington. And about $6.5 million of that came from West Edge and Coalfield Development's involvement in the project. Dollars that are going directly into what we desperately need and deeply deserve right now, the creation of jobs right now in every industry. In a Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. And the Coalfield Development philosophy was, be the economy you want to see in southern West Virginia. No one's going to ride in on a white horse and quote unquote fix the economy.
Right.
No plant's going to come in the way plants used to come in and create numbers of jobs. We are now going to have to struggle with automation, with electronics, with robots who are going to do much of this.
Right.
So,
but learning how to run the robots is very important.
It is, and that's why we need an education to go with it. So that's why there's this dovetail between the local technical colleges and Coalfield to bring folks up. That's why there's this constant pursuit of certifications. While I was at Coalfield Development, I lost track of all the certs I got because I was just sitting in on the courses with the crew members. And I got like a forklift trainer, forklift operator's license, and all these other things, which are necessary, of course, because I was running the forklift from time to time. And then I wound up sitting in on this NABCEP training. It's a national certifying body in solar. And that's where my pins that I always carry came from. We had to do, you remember these?
Yes,
I love
do.
these things, and I'm never without one. We had to do single line diagrams in that class, multicolor, and just trying to lay out and draw solar systems. This was the beginning of building the Rewire Appalachia enterprise to put young people to work, installing solar, and who was going to develop that solar and who was going to market that Solar Holler. So an important partnership between, the foundations, between the municipality, between nonprofits and for-profit or companies. Like, we have this incredible singularity forming, and it constitutes an investment, right? And this investment, once we, pump some money into it over the course of time, is going to begin to emerge past sustainability into profitability for not just all the organizations involved, but for the nonprofits that are taking those dollars and putting them to work in the communities where they're deeply needed every single day.
Well, I'm excited.
Yeah, well, me too.
Do you, now this is a short answer, hopefully. Do you see Huntington having solar panels, maybe every other home on the south side, or some of our commercial buildings, or more of our commercial buildings downtown, which is near and dear to my heart, downtown?
Yes, and yes. We recently worked with a community action network nonprofit called West Virginia Sun. They're in 5 states now, West Virginia, Ohio, Florida, and you name it. And we have over 30 people just in the Huntington area. Some of these even across the river in Ohio, which is a new territory for us. And we're servicing them right now to, get through the proposal stage to contracts. There are installs coming. And let me tell you, too, there are partnership-based installs coming in the coming weeks that are going to really shake the ground here in terms of opening the door to new possibilities for solar in our region.
Well, I most certainly could talk to you much, much longer about all of this and where it's going and
we should. I look forward to it.
And so maybe you'll come back another time with some other exciting announcements or news. I would love to have that, but I want to thank you so much for spending some time with me this evening, and I'd like to thank our viewers for doing the same.